Now, of the three tiers of government, the local government is the level of government that is most accessible and accountable to its citizens. In matters of education, primary health care, drainages, among others, the local government is to fix the challenges and reduce the burdens of people. Over the years, the local government has been deprived of financial and administrative liberty. While the local government remains the third tier of governments, the 1999 Constitution says it's one of their responsibilities to ensure good governance at the grassroots and enable development in the communities. But how much more fortification and strength does local governance need? Joining me in the studio to discuss this is the managing editor, Avalon Daily, Ayodele Adio. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Breakfast. Now, in the matters of governance, as I read a little earlier, and development and local council is the place where the rubber meets the road. Talk to us about the governance at the local levels vis-a-vis the Nigerian setting.
Governance at the local level in Nigeria is completely dead. And this explains why we are in a peculiar national security crisis. We are battling with poverty crisis, and we're battling with all sorts of social crises, because governance at the local level has been completely usurped by cronies of political actors who have used that tier of government to siphon resources and to essentially vulgarize our entire institution. So, and for me, except we get governance at the local level right, we are not going to make progress in this country, because it is impossible for you to govern Nigeria either from Abuja or for you to govern Lagos effectively from Alausa, because the realities of the people in Okokomaiko is different from the realities of the people in Isolo. And then you need local governance in Isolo to cater to the needs and the realities of the people in Isolo. And it's impossible for the governor of Babajide Sanwo-Olu to be everywhere in Lagos. You can't govern Lagos from Alausa effectively. It's not possible. You need the competencies, the capabilities of local government persons across the 50 LCDAs in Lagos State to be competent, to provide leadership, and to do due diligence in their local governments for progress to be made. Without that, we'll just be blinking in the dark.
Well, there have been arguments, as to whether local government is a third tier of government and a feature of federalism, or that it should be, the local government should be an exclusive responsibility of the state. What exactly should we believe?
You see, whether it's the third tier in a federal system of government or it's a creation of the state, it doesn't matter. The idea is that local government should have autonomy, whether it's financial, autonomy, or the autonomy to govern without interference from the state or federal governments. That is the crust of the matter. Without this financial autonomy or the ability to govern without interference, we are not going to make progress. So whether it's the third tier of the federal government or it's a creation of state government, that is simply by the way. The crust of the matter is that local governments have to have financial autonomy to function effectively and to elect people at the local councils who have the capabilities and vision to lead their local governments effectively. And you see, here's the funny thing about our local government or local governance in Nigeria. We have made progress at the federal level, and I'm talking about federal elections now. We have made tremendous progress at the federal level such that elections to a very large extent are free and fair. But that is not the case at your local government. In fact, at local governments, it's a complete aberration. Elections hardly even hold. People are bullied. People don't even come out to vote because it's a complete farce. And people who get elected in local governments do not even bother campaigning. You just need somebody to write your name at the state capital, and then you are appointed, really literally appointed and really not elected local government chairman. So the first step is that we must get elections right. We must sanitize the electoral process at the local government level to ensure that the people we elect into those positions are people that reflect the realities of the people and people who are willing to govern effectively at that level. If we don't get the elections right or the recruitment process right at the local government level, we're just sinking and wasting away resources, funneling away resources to pockets of contractors and individuals who have strangulated our local government, suffocated it completely, and abandoned governance at that level. And that's a complete shame. It's a complete shame, and we must find a way to fix it. To rescue
it's now become fashionable that, just like you said, we don't have elections at the local government level, especially when we have a new governor in place. They ensure that they don't have election at the local level, and what they install committee, what do they call them? Caretaker committee.
Yes.
So this is not constitutional, as a lot of people have argued, but it seems to be the order of the day.
Yes,
so what do you think needs
the
to be done?
The Supreme Court has made a clear pronouncement that there is nothing like caretaker committee in the Constitution. The Supreme Court has also delivered judgment that governors do not have the powers to just unilaterally sack elected local government executives, right? But governors continue to illegally sack elected local government chairpersons, to illegally appoint cronies as caretaker committees against the wishes of the people in those particular councils, right? And this is a complete aberration. And I expect that, going forward, civil society organizations, the media, will have to come to terms with challenging executive overreach in this matter. Because you cannot continue to go against the Constitution. You can't go against judicial decisions to continue to either remove elected local government chairpersons or even worse, decide not to hold elections in local governments, because what you are doing is that you are denying local governments of effective representation, which is a denial of their rights and their dignities in those particular local governments. So it's a personal. We should take it personal, because, my brother, you can't get to Abuja, but you can get to the head office of your local government. That's the closest person to governance to you. So many of us, in fact, a great deal, more than 95% of Nigerians will never meet the president of their country. But they have access to their local government chairpersons. And that is the tier of government that we must take very, very seriously. And let me tell you something. The reason why Nigeria has not solved any social problem in the last 40 years is because none of these problems have been solved at a local level. And if you cannot solve a problem at the local level, it's impossible to scale this problem at a national level. Many of the solutions that you see in successful countries, whether it's the United States, Europe, or the United Kingdom, are solutions that were formulated at a particular council, and it was scaled at a national or a regional level, albeit. So if we don't start solving problems, whether they are health, education, security problems at a local level, it will be impossible to find the knowledge that we can scale at a national level to solve our problems. And that's a serious challenge. We're not solving problems because we're not building leaders. Listen, governance is no tea party. It's a very serious business. And I dare say it's the most difficult responsibility that you can be tasked with, right? And the idea that somebody can come from anywhere and just be president, my brother, you would be in the first 3-4 years, you will just be trying to learn the process because you have not effectively governed before. But when somebody has been local government chairman, he's had the requisite experience to govern at an executive level. And should that person become governor of a particular state, he comes with some sort of experience that he can inject to hit the ground running at a state level. And should that person eventually become president, he already has the capacity to start to get things done from day one. So we cannot excuse the continuous balkanization, vulgarization of our local governments for the sake of massaging the egos of state governors who do not want that tier of government to function. We can't continue to allow that.
Just like you put the blame on the people as well, who allow these things to fester for a long time. When we talk about presentation of national budget, majority of Nigerians can actually reel out the budget offhand and saying this is the amount that is budgeted. But ask about the budget even in their state, let alone their local government levels. They don't know.
Exactly.
Why exactly, or what exactly you think is responsible for this?
There's too much attention on Abuja. there's too much. We have a
Is it
hangover
because of the
with
power,
Abuja.
the magnitude of power that the president wields? That is
Yes,
the
I
reason
mean,
why
there's
all
no
focus is,
listen,
all focus are there.
there is no doubt that the presidency wields, unbelievable power at the center, right? But a lot of things that we complain about are the responsibility of local governments. And let me tell you something. If you have an effective local government chairperson, you probably we may not have any business with the president. Because mind you, a lot of people do not even travel. So if you don't travel from, for instance, Lagos to Kano, you don't care what the highways look like, which are the responsibilities of the federal government, for instance. You don't care, really. What you care about is the road that takes you from your house to probably your business place. And if those roads are done, which are inter-city roads, if they are done by your local government chairperson, you really do not have a problem with Abuja. If your primary healthcare center in your local government functions effectively, you really do not need to bother about Abuja to get healthcare. If primary education at the local government level functions effectively, you don't need to be crying about Abuja. Yeah. So if the basic needs are met at the local level, you really, really and truly do not really care about who is president or who isn't president at the end of the day, because there is governance at the local level. Yeah. The reason why we all are crying about who becomes president or what the president does or what the president eats is because there is first no governance at the local level. Yeah. People do not feel the presence of governance anywhere around them. And so every time you think about governance, what comes to mind is the man in Abuja, and you blame him for all your problems, forgetting that somebody
doesn't even know whether you're there or not.
Forgetting somebody 2 blocks away is responsible for so many of the things that you're complaining about. So it's a chicken and the egg situation. And I think that is important to start from the position of the people. In the last local government elections in my own local government, there are over 50,000 registered persons in that local government. The councillor was elected with less than 500 votes. So it means only 500 people voted for people in a constituency with over 50,000 registered voters. He's not going to govern over 500 people. He will govern over the 50,000 registered and unregistered persons in that particular place. So people at the local level must begin to show more interest in who they elect at a council level, in who they elect to become their local government chairpersons. And they must take that process very, very seriously. The idea that in local government elections, people can just queue and vote with their ID cards or vote, just show anybody whatever ID card, and you're allowed to queue and vote.
And the quality of the people that vote into power. Well, local government is utterly debased in Nigeria, and with this conversation around financial autonomy for local governments as captured in the recent constitution amendments, how far-reaching will these aid governance in the country, and especially that local government in the country as well?
When you have financial autonomy, you just made the points about having budgets, about Nigerians knowing about what the federal budget looks like, and they don't even know what the state budget looks like. When you have some level of financial autonomy at the local government level, you would probably have what you call community newspapers, for instance, that will begin to beam the light at the local level to say, okay, this is the budget in your local government. You begin to have people do analysis of how that budget is being implemented at the local level, and then people can begin to make demands on their elected local government chairpersons that if you had 500 million naira to spend on education and infrastructure, why do our schools and marketplaces still look like this? Then people will begin to ask questions, and then people will begin to elect people who solve their problems or who is likely to be there for them at the time of need. So I think people at local level will need to stand up and make stronger demands, that they deserve better. They deserve to be governed better. The idea that your local government chairman will be living in Lekki and claims that he's governing a place in Akonwanjo is a complete joke, because that's the reality today. You have most local government chairpersons living in gated estates in Lekki and claim that you are governing councils in Ikorodu or in Okumaiko. The people are living in complete penury. There's no governance at those levels.
Some of them even
things are not even.
Abuja,
some of them are even in Abuja. You see, there are local government chairpersons in the north who live in Abuja permanently. who don't even show up in their local government places.
Apart
right?
from those who are sacked from their local government.
Do you understand?
So,
exactly. So it's a problem nationally. It's a plague, and we must stand up to say, listen, if we can't influence policy in Abuja, at least let us influence policies in our local government. And if we get it right at the local government, then we can begin to make progress as a nation. And that is why it's important to fight for that financial autonomy, because this joint state local government accounts where governors have the powers, which is principally why the first...
It's called JAC, Joint Allocation Account.
Exactly.
But the thing is, some states, help the local government manage its funds, and because that argument, they say it's to help curb corruption at that level. We know that corruption is it's a bane in the country.
Does the president help governors manage their funds to curb corruption at the state level? Does that happen?
Yeah, some have actually argued that what we have is just basically the executive and the federal and the state.
Yes.
No local government. So the local government should be a responsibility of the state, so that they can help them to manage funds, properly.
You see, again, this is very laughable, which is why I said from the very beginning, it doesn't matter whether the local governments are a creation of a federating unit or a federating system, which is the third tier of government, or it's a creation of the state. It really doesn't matter. What matters is that these local governments have financial autonomy and they are elected by a specific council. The moment they are elected by a particular local government, they are responsible to that local government, and they are expected to govern by the Constitution over a given period of time. And the Constitution stipulates how a good local government chairman can be effectively removed from office. And of course, that is by the council, which are the councillors, whether the legislative body, that are supposed to serve in that particular council, right? Now, to that extent, you do not need the argument that you are helping a local government manage funds. It makes absolutely no sense, right? You are not even done managing the own funds within your own purview. His or our own funds. That cannot work, right? And that we can't make progress like that. So the moment the people elect, listen, that local government chairman is no longer accountable to the governor. He's accountable to the people that elect him. And that's why it's a complete aberration when people elect caretaker committees, because caretaker chairpersons are accountable to the governors that appoint them and not to the people that they are governing over. And so they have no responsibility over you in their council, because their loyalty lies with the governor.
So whose duty is to ensure transparency at the local government level? Assuming, okay, fine, financial autonomy, you've got all your money directly into your account. Whose duty is to ensure transparency?
It's a collective responsibility. A collective responsibility. You have a plethora of civil society organizations who every week you see budget analysis, you see legal analysis of what the federal government is doing wrong or right, and all of that. We need to domesticate that at the local governance level, where you have civil society organizations that are championing transparency of governance at the local level. People are opening budgets to the public at the local government. People are shining a beam light at the health systems, the education systems, holding officers accountable for the responsibilities that have been placed in their care. Not the idea that somebody just drives past your estate and you hailed him, he supervised all this, but he's not supervising anything. He's just collecting salaries from the local government and not doing any job, right? So it's a collective responsibility. You and I will have to hold people accountable in our local governments. We need community newspapers who will report on events and happenings at the local level. We need civil society organizations who will challenge corruption at the local government level and who will put pressure on local government executives to do the right thing. We need lawyers who the responsibilities of local governments, will take the governors to court to demand that the rights of people in those communities be respected and the Constitution be respected. So it's a collective responsibility from people who want local governments to work, and we must put our hands together to make sure that it works. Otherwise, good governance will continue to elude.
Because of our time, Ayodele, I wanted to touch on the fact that we know that insecurity is a serious issue in the country, and then they say every politics is local.
Yes.
Talk to us about how the local government can be strengthened to ensure that insecurity is fought to a standstill. Because just like you said, the power is at the center, there in Abuja, but there are different localities. There's nowhere you find insecurity issues, but there is a local government that is, around there. So how do you think this can help in, fighting insecurity?
For me, I have consistently advocated that to solve our security problems, we have to solve our local governance problems. It's almost causative and not even really correlative. It's almost causative. Because if you look at the communities that have fallen to terrorists or bandits across the country, there's a similarity or there's a pattern across these communities. These are communities that there's complete absence of governance. You go to those communities, their police stations are not functioning, their hospitals are not functioning, their schools are not functioning. There is effectively no governance at that particular level. And those communities have been vulnerable to attacks from terrorists. In fact, many of these communities are even now paying levies to bandits to survive and to even go to their farms to farm, right? So the moment we have effective local governing institutions at the local government level, then people now have the resources to determine how those communities will be best protected. I can give you a very simple example. I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago that somebody was burnt alive. Somebody was burnt in Lekki. Yeah. Did you get a statement from the local government chairperson there? Have you reported a statement from the local chairperson there? It's an aberration, because what that means is that a dastardly act can be committed like that in your community, and you have no responsibility whatsoever. Sometimes I wonder if we actually govern in this country, that something would happen within your jurisdiction and you do not have the barest of concern to at least even address the media to explain what had happened and what you're doing at the local government level to deter things like that from happening. You go around Lekki, a lot of those communities have been taken over by people you cannot identify. What is the chairperson doing? If you ask the chairpersons of this local government, if he has a knowledge of what happens in many of the places in those communities, he cannot tell you. And so the governor has to leave Alausa to drive down to Lekki to start to make inquiries of what had happened in the local government, where you have an elected local government chairperson. It's a complete joke. So except we start to get it right at the local government level, we are not going to make progress. In fact, city councils in serious countries are powerful councils, city councils, because they even determine approvals of buildings, where parks should be, where markets should be installed. They are very, very important places of government. But here, it's sad, because we always have to say this over and over again. And hopefully, I hope that the Nigerian people will realize that we're shortchanging ourselves if we don't demand for better governance at the local level. Because we will not make progress as a people if we don't get governance right at that particular level.
Well, it's quite an insightful conversation. Thank you very kindly, Managing Editor, Avalon Daily, Ayodele Adio. Thank you so much for your time on TVC Breakfast this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.